But the reason I wanted to bring this together is I was personally struggling with finances for a while. And then I ended up trying to figure out new plans and everything else and trying to do it all on my own, which doesn't help. And luckily got in touch with Albert, who um, did a presentation for my soccer girls way back in like 2007. And it took me a while to actually reconnect with him. But the insight that he's given me has helped me substantially. And what better way to help others than get a video together and put it out there? So, Albert's been in the industry for over 25 years, has helped me personally, and would love to share more about, him and what he does. So, Albert, kind of give us a little bit of like who you are and what you do.
Happy to do so, man. And congrats too. Here's the important part also that you took action, right? Which a lot of times people live in silence. It's, you know, admitting to another person that you're struggling financially. That takes a lot of courage. Sometimes some people it's easy for them to just say, "Hey, I'm struggling," right? And other people, because of ego, pride, for whatever reason is that they have a hard time opening up. And it's like me being unhealthy and not wanting to see a doctor, right? That doesn't even make sense. The doctor's there to help me. So I'm glad you not only reached out finally to kind of, say, "Hey, I need some help with my finances," but the most important part, you took action. A lot of people sometimes don't, even if they get the information, right? They're like, "Okay, it was great information," and that's it, and they go about their normal life and go back to their old habits. And in order to change your finances, you got to take some action. I got started in this, Charles, when I was 20 years old. So I'm lucky. A good friend of mine from high school gave me a call as a 19-year-old at the time. I was just about to turn
Wow.
20. And he said, "Hey, there's a rich guy in Oak Brook who wants to meet with you about this business." And I hung up on him, right? I actually hung up on him. I'm like, why would a rich guy want to talk to me? And he calls me back with a sense of urgency and said, "Hey, if you don't make it to Oak Brook in the next hour, you're going to miss out a big opportunity." And all I remember, Charles, because I grew up in Berwyn, Illinois,
Yeah.
from a, you know, I don't want to say broke family, but we didn't have a lot of resources. My dad passed away when I was little. My mom became a widow. She never
Mhm.
remarried, so she had to raise us on her own. So we never
Yeah.
grew up around money, but I always knew Oak Brook, Illinois was like a wealthy town. So I'm like,
Yeah.
if this person has an office in Oak Brook, I assumed as my 20-year-old mindset, like it must be like maybe for real, right? So I took a
Right.
shot. And I met this guy, Jeff, who says, "Hey, you're kind of young, but if you want to learn about money, finances, I'll show you some things." And back in the 90s, it was right before the dot-com bust where the market crashed. The market
Mhm.
was doing really well. So I had heard about the stock market and people making lots of money. I wanted to learn, but I didn't have any mentors or anybody in my own family that would teach me. So I'm like, if this guy's willing to teach me, great. So I learned a lot. And I actually decided to become an agent and picked up some licenses and certifications to help others around my circle learn about money. And he
Mhm.
says, "Look, if you help them, you can get compensated." And here I am 26 years later. Long story short, so
That's awesome. That's awesome. How something like that, even at that young age of just being able to jump into things. And I know you and I have had this conversation before, but like how did it feel being a young person and maybe not in the same financial boat as some of the people that you're going to be interacting with?
well, I remember being embarrassed because, and by the way, now in hindsight, I'm
Right.
like, I don't know what I was thinking, why was I thinking that way? But the person I had met with was very successful. He was making over $1 million a year in income.
Hmm.
That's intimidating to an adult, let alone a teenager, right?
Yeah.
And he says, we'll do your financial plan. And I'm like, oh shoot, like this guy's got millions. I got like 3 grand in savings from work. I worked at Brookfield Zoo and UPS, and back then it
Yeah.
was 6.25 an hour, $8 an hour. So looking back, it actually takes a lot to save 3 grand at $8 an hour after
It
taxes
does.
and everything. So instead of him saying, "What, you like got no money?" He was like, "Albert, I'm pretty impressed. You got 3 grand saved." He goes, "I know a lot of adults that don't have $3,000." Here I went from like feeling embarrassed that he's going to look at my stuff and exposing myself to him
Yeah.
saying, "Look, you're on the right track. You just need
Mhm.
to be redirected." He goes, "You mastered saving. You're a good saver. I can tell that because you need to be start learning how to become an investor."
Okay.
And I'm like, I thought you needed lots of money for that, right? It's my misconception. Back then, like if you had E-Trade or something like that, it was like $7 a trade, and it wasn't free like nowadays with Robinhood, where you can just
Right.
people just open up these apps and start investing. And he goes, look, you ought to start a. I remember it was a mutual fund with a company called Janus, and it was $25 a month. I couldn't believe you can open an account with that little.
Hmm.
And that's all I could afford. And I remember getting term life insurance because when my dad passed away, he didn't have life insurance.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'm not planning on dying, but God forbid something happens to me. I'm a college student, and you know what happens in school. You take
Yeah.
risks, unnecessary risks. I'm like, yes, with some of my friends and everything, who knows, maybe something might happen to me. I'm like, I would not want my mom to have to worry about finances again. So I
Right.
remember getting a couple of little products, and it was my beginning into this world of saving and investing, my humble beginning, right? And I went from a little fish to becoming a mid-sized fish and a bigger fish. You know, the more money I was making, I always understood the principle of saving first and
Right.
then spending and buying cars and houses and all that stuff.
Yeah. So going on with that too, like there's two avenues I think that you and I have had conversations about before about difference between a product and a plan, and we'll get to that in a second. But
Yeah.
in your 25 years of experience of working with others and everything else around whatever stage of life they're in with their finances, like what do you tend to see I guess big misconceptions around money, depending on where you are in your life.
Man, I could talk about hours because there's so many, but I just think people, we all want to retire someday.
Hmm.
Yes. We
Yeah.
all would like to learn how to pay less in taxes legally, right? Yes. If
Yes.
somebody has children, they probably would want to learn how to afford college for their kids. Yes.
Yes.
Nobody wants to be in debt or struggle with that, right? So most people would want to get out of debt faster. Yes.
Yes.
So what we do, I think, is universally appealing. Just people don't have a plan. They don't understand how to put the strategy together, right? If I was actually just interviewing somebody that is a gym owner,
Hmm.
imagine going to a gym and you have just one weight and you're just working. You're like, I got to wait. I'm working on one muscle. Well,
Right.
you might have a strong bicep, but you're not working the whole body, right?
Right.
And in finance, they always call it the 6 steps of finance, which one would be like having extra cash flow, just knowing my expenses versus my income. And I want to have more income than expenses at the end of the month so I can have more cash flow. Then I want to get out of debt, right? I
Hmm.
want to eliminate it, get rid of it, and more importantly, not fall back into it. Because I see people when they see the zero balance on their credit card, they're like, all right, let's hit up the store again. You want to have an emergency fund, right? Most Americans, shockingly, don't have $1,000 for an emergency. They would immediately have to go borrow, get into debt if like their car broke down, right? So you want to have that. You want to have proper protection. People um, love insurance. They just don't like paying for it because there's a premium, there's a cost to it. And then when you watch commercials, it's a little deceptive, right? Geico says we're going to save you how much?
Yeah. Yeah. Millions.
15%. Like, how do you
15%.
know that, right? Then Progressive has Flow, Allstate has Mayhem, Jake from
State Farm
Nationwide is on your
side.
side, right? So everybody knows the commercials, but like, what do these companies do? They never publish their prices. And
Right.
what I help clients do is figure out like what products they can benefit from, how they work, do the educational part. But what most people want to make sure is if I got sick, God forbid I pass away, if I lose anything of value, I want to get it replaced, right? And that's what insurance is
Hmm.
for. But I also want to pay a fair price. Then it's asset accumulation. So that's growing my money, getting a better rate of return, paying less in taxes, and then finally, good estate planning, right? Making sure you have a will, a trust. I run into a lot of people and they know they're like, you know what? I know I need one. I just haven't got around to it. And not to bring up, a
Yeah. A
personal
person that we've
story,
spoken
but
to. Yeah.
what you shared with me with your mom, right? And she didn't have
Yeah.
really her ducks in order and stuff like that. And that was a pain in the butt for you. And it
Yeah.
made you realize, like, man, I got to do a little bit of planning. It's not only for yourself, but for your loved ones, right? You got to think
Mhm.
about the people that you care about in your life. So, though, sometimes people come to me and they're like, it's like when you get a flat tire. I just need my flat tire fixed, right? So maybe they
Yeah.
want to talk to me about their retirement account. And other
Mm.
times people are like, you know what? I've never done a full financial checkup, right? It'd be nice to
Right.
look at all the areas and analyze everything and see what I'm doing good at and maybe some areas that I can need improvement on. So, but some of the misconceptions are I need a lot of money to do that. It's
Right.
going to cost a lot of money for somebody to help me, which we do those services for free. I've never charged you a dime, to
No,
help you.
never.
And you know what? I just help you figure out a plan. We put you with the right company. They compensate me. And all I ask is that if I did a good job, you introduce this to other people as a referral. One, it helps my practice, it helps my business, but
Yeah.
more importantly, like share the wealth, share the knowledge, let other people know that this can help them too.
Yeah. And I think some misconceptions that I'm getting from some people that I speak to all the time is, oh well, Charles, I have a 401k, I have a IUL, I have these things already, and then I'll have conversations with you with those individuals, and I think some of the breakdown is people don't know what's in them, and so can you kind of explain like what people could tend to look for to kind of help them out?
Well, having a 401k is great. I think if you have a match, if you understand the ins and outs, there's always three stages of money, right? Your contribution stage when you put money in, which is important. You have to save some money.
Yeah.
The accumulation, that's probably what you're referring to, where sometimes I'll ask people like, tell me how your 401k works or how is it invested? And they're like deer in the headlights, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
are you aggressive? Are you conservative? Are you in stocks? Are you in bonds? And most people say, well, I know my balance and I know that it goes up and down. And I'm like, well, they haven't done a good job explaining to you how it works. And then also, so growing it, the accumulation, and how it's going to work later on in life when you distribute it, right? You'd be shocked how many people I meet with. And when they get to their retirement years, they're like, what do you mean I got to pay taxes on this? I thought you never paid taxes on your retirement plan. I'm 65, I'm older.
Right.
And they worked all their life contributing and accumulating. They never stopped 1 second to plan out the distribution phase. And then
Mm.
also, if you're a little younger, you got to understand taxes because there are programs like, as an example, this is not advice. Meet with somebody
Yeah.
and
Right,
figure this
right.
out if it makes sense. But like a Roth IRA, where my money can grow tax free, um, my contribution is not tax deductible. So my contribution is not tax deductible. My money grows tax free. But guess what happens at the end on my distribution? I get to keep every penny from there,
Mm.
right? And people are like, I didn't even know that existed, right? Or
Right.
my employer never told me about it. And I see people that have a Roth 401k version with their retirement plan. So just, it's like uh, I consider it like walking into a pharmacy, right? You're sick, you
Yeah.
walk into a pharmacy, there's all this medication. And if you don't know which medication you're to pick, it's going to be difficult, right? It's going to be very challenging. Or if you're like, pharmacist, come over here. I have some cough symptoms, right?
Right.
Well, which medication they can help me filter it down maybe where I can make an informed decision. And that's what an advisor does, Charles. It's just kind
Okay.
of helps you figure it out and not just have a product, because having a product is great, a 401k, some insurance policies, but how does this fit in your plan? What's the projection? How much money are you going to end up with? Is it going to be enough to take care of you later on? How is that going to look like with your Social Security? How much of Social Security are you going to get? Most people don't know how to
Right.
figure that out. So you got to put that plan in place. And here's what I find out once somebody does it. They're like,
Hmm.
I can't believe I procrastinated so many years to put this in place. But once you have something in place,
Yeah.
then you feel better, right? You don't feel guilty when treat yourself to a nice steak dinner if you're saving, right? You're like, you know what? I'm
Right.
saving, I'm on track to hit my goals. I deserve a steak dinner for all my hard work and effort, or I
Right.
deserve a good vacation. Some people are like, I'm gonna go on the vacation, I'll figure that stuff out later. And
Right.
there's this thing in our industry, right? Either uh, pay the price now and play later,
Hmm.
or play now but pay the price later, which
Right.
the last thing you want to do is in your 60s is worry about money and finances, my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I wanted to bring up real quick. So what Albert said is true. I'm that guy that waited too long, and I think I got set up with you officially like 3 years ago. And over the 3 years that I've worked with Albert, and had a financial plan and everything else put together, and then have one of those products that put into place to help me out. That's grown over 20% in 3 years, which is something that I didn't think was possible, and is really cool. So there's that. But here's where I kind of want to go with this too. There's like I would say three stages that people are in. Either like they're in debt and they need to get out. They're doing okay. They're not really in debt, but they're not really growing. And then there's those that are like well-to-do, but they want to make more. Like, what would be a bit of advice that you can give to each one of those?
Again, you got to have a plan in place. Here's a mistake people make. They're like, you know what? When I get out of debt, then I'll start saving and investing.
Hmm.
And depending on what kind of debt you have, that can take a few months or it can take 5 or 10 years.
Right.
The biggest thing with money, one of your best friends is time. Time is probably more important than your rate of return sometimes or taxes. And 5 years can be devastating to your end number. Like what you want to do is, and I do this with people all the time, I take out a compound interest calculator and figure out, well, do you have good debt or bad debt, right? What's the interest? Let's break that down.
Yeah.
And sometimes what you want to do is things simultaneously. You don't want to wait to get started on your investing because those 5 years, which doesn't seem like a long time, like, well, I'll start in 5 years, right? Maybe I want to save $500 a month, but it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars less
Yeah.
that I would be like, you're not going to pay that on interest on your debt, right? So why would you sacrifice an extra $500,000 for your retirement because you're trying to save a few $1,000 on your debt? Numbers talk, right? So you just got to be able to crunch the numbers, strategize. It's how you think about it, and then also your relationship to debt. Some people were raised like you do not get into debt, and they're like it's traumatic for them to even have a thousand
Yeah.
dollars in debt, right? So they do everything to get rid of debt. And then other people that figure like, let me leverage that, or I can have constructive debt, right? Like
Mhm.
nobody likes debt, but it's how you
Right.
view it, your relationship with it. And I don't mind carrying debt if it's low interest, maybe even tax deductible, like a mortgage, some student loans, etc. Obviously, if you have a 36% credit card or car loan, like you got to knock that out.
Yeah.
But it's not knowing how to do the math literally
Hmm.
can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run.
Yeah.
And I hate, for people to do that because it's devastating, right? I'd rather have an extra 500,000 in my retirement and pay, I don't know, a few extra $1,000 in interest if possible in that scenario.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Albert, I appreciate your time. If somebody wants to connect, what's the best way they can do that?
This is a secret between us, man. This is just you and I. No, obviously you have my contact information. I
Yeah.
think you wanted to do this and share it with some of your friends, and I'm glad you're averaging 20% returns on your investments. By the way, that has nothing to do, well, a little bit to do with me. I just guided you.
Yeah.
Market conditions have been very favorable, and I always tell people past performance is no guarantee of future performance, right? Usually when I
Yeah.
talk to my clients, I'm like, look, long term, the market's average somewhere around 8 to 10%, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if we exceeded it, voila, great, your accounts are doing better. Uh, but sometimes we got to prepare for downturns and stuff in the market. But I'm there to guide people with that, right?
Right.
So if anybody that you know needs help, advice, connect them with me. I'll meet with them. I'll treat them exactly like I treated you, help them put a plan in place. And more importantly, we just want to see people take action so that they can live, comfortably and have, their finances in order.
Perfect. I appreciate you, Albert. Have a great one.
Of course, man. All right. Good seeing you, Charles. Take care.
You as well. Thanks.